Hello, this is Peter Bostwick
And Beth.
with another chapter of You Can Choose. So today's chapter is You Are Who You Think You Are. I wrote this chapter because I realized that I am who I think I am, and I was who I thought I was at various points in my life. It's
Special, isn't it?
it's amazing when I tell people the name of this chapter. They say they kind of look like, what? It's like, no, duh. You are, of course, you are who you think you are. But then you think about it a little bit more, and it really becomes obvious that your thoughts are who you become. And that's really the message behind this chapter. Is that it's not about the position you have or the job you have or the role that you want to play. It's who you think you are in that role or in that job or in that situation. Do you think of yourself as a victim? Do you think of yourself as the helper, the enabler? Whatever you think of yourself as is usually how you are perceived by others and how others treat you. So let's go ahead and read the chapter.
Okay. You are who you think you are. If you think you are poor or shy, then you'll conform your body and behaviors to reflect that. If you think you are boring, you'll broadcast to the world, I'm boring.
Most of us don't challenge who we are. We've been told we are something or expect to be the same or opposite of our parents.
No matter what you look like, what you say or do to others, if you think you are something, that's the message that you're sending to others.
You can be who you want by focusing on how you think of yourself. Think of yourself in the way you want others to see you. Consider the image you want to broadcast.
You've already spent some of your life thinking about who you are, and in a certain way. Can you see how the thoughts you've had about yourself over time are reflected in how others see you?
I like to think of my life as a set of chapters. The time I was growing up at home, the time I spent in college, and my first career. In each of those chapters, I viewed myself as a child, as a student, and as a young professional. The things I did and the experiences I had were based on who I was, or at least on who I thought I was.
So there was a job I had when I was in college, and I was waiting tables, and it was a really interesting experience for me because, one, I'd always wanted to wait tables. I just thought it was the most amazing job. Not sure why, but I did. And when I finally did get a job as a waitress, it was in a really nice restaurant, and I found after working there for a little while that there were people who made assumptions about me that just didn't quite feel right. And I thought, well, that's really interesting. I am who I am. And of course, I thought everybody knew who I was at that point in my life. And it taught me some really important lessons around you are who you think you are, in that people will treat you a certain way because of a role you're in, what you're wearing, how you dress. But the thing that's really important is what you think you are. And I remember when I was waiting tables, I began to question who I was based on the way people were acting towards me. And that was a really important lesson to have early in life. But I think it relates very clearly back to this chapter that you really need to spend some time thinking about who you are, and even who you want to be, I would argue, is just as important. And I think that just because you're in certain roles in life doesn't necessarily mean that's who you are. You define who you are by who you think you are.
So for me, when I think about you are who you think you are, I mentioned it in the book itself about the different phases or the different chapters of my life and who I thought I was at that time. But one of the things that I came across not that long ago through some of the exercises that I've done to better understand myself is realize that I viewed myself for a good part of my life as a good little boy. That's a, what? Here I am, a 50-something successful man, started a company and do all kinds of, I'm a vice president or a partner, all these things in my life. But I still harken back to the way I viewed myself when I was young and the way my mother viewed me, or the way my mother wanted me to be, which is to be a good little boy.
And I never looked at him as a good little boy, just so you know.
But it did impact a lot of what I did. So it impacted the way I behaved towards others. It impacted how I sought approval, how I didn't want to upset the apple cart at certain times. So it's kind of a interesting way of looking at life based on who you think you are. And while I never necessarily exhibited the fact or advertised the fact or had on my job title a good little boy, that was a lot of the feelings that I had, and it impacted a lot of the things in my life.
So ever since I was a young person, I always thought of myself as very active and was involved in athletic events, involved in lots of different competitions over the years. And one of the things that I found, as Peter had written this chapter, was that I thought of myself as very capable, very active, and that in fact helped me through some very difficult times in my life where I had to think of myself in a positive way, and I would always reflect back on the fact that I had always been physically active, in decent shape, I had competed, been successful in that in some respects, and so that thought of being effective at or strong or good at something turned out to be quite an important resource for me as I worked through those difficult situations.
So one of the aspects of this chapter that I'm hoping resonates with people is that you have the choice of being who you think you are. So who you want to be doesn't necessarily have to be who you are now. Or better yet, who you are now doesn't have to be who you want to be. You can be somebody else. If you love who you are and you like doing what you're doing and you like the interaction you're having with other people, then by golly, keep it going, because that's kind of where you want to be. So think about how you view yourself. Most of us view ourselves with labels, right? We see ourselves as a Democrat or a Republican or an independent, right? We see ourselves as a Christian or a Jew or a Muslim or independent. So we see ourselves with these labels, and then because we have these labels, sometimes we assume a lot of what goes along with those labels. So think about who you are with respect to who you want to be. And if you want to lump yourself in with a group, that's fine. But most of us are truly individuals, and we will express our greater selves by doing so.
Mm-hmm. The other thing I guess I would add to that is there might be some parts of that label that work for you, but a whole lot of other parts that don't. And I think that's partly what Peter's talking about, is really think about what it is that you really want to be part of yourself, like proactively, and spend some time thinking about that. Explore who you are, who you think you are, who you might want to be, because that's the whole power of your thoughts around who you are.
Perfect.
Hello.
Wait, you have to wait until I come all the way down. Otherwise, when it edits, it comes back like this. I mean, let me take that step back.